Thank you so much for having me today, Jenny, at Journeys Travel. It is such a pleasure to be able to share with you, share with your, let's say, our mutual future guests, the world of Hurtigruten. It's a name that probably isn't that well known throughout, I would say, North America, but we're working on that, and I think we've got such an incredible, product to offer, and it really is great to look at travel in a sustainable mindset, which I'm going to share a little bit about that with you. So, without further ado, my name's Kristen. I'm one of the sales directors with this wonderful company, and I'm going to take you through a little bit about who we are and hopefully inspire everyone along the way. So we started actually back in 1893. Yes, we are over 127 years old, and we are known for having the world's most beautiful sea voyage. It is a route all the way along the Norwegian coast. We go a round trip for 12 days from Bergen up to Kirkenes and back. And believe it or not, this actually started as a supply route, a ferry route, a mail route back in 1893. That's why we started as a company, especially because there were so many small Norwegian coastal towns above the Arctic Circle that weren't getting consistent shipments and weren't getting their mail on time. So this is essentially where the Hurtigruten ships actually started, and we do still somewhat run a supply ferry service to this day, where we can have cruise passengers on board as well. But the product I'm going to focus more on is about our expedition offerings, and we've got some incredible, bucket list worthy destinations around the world where we get to do small ship exploration cruising. So that's going to be the focus for today. So what makes cruising with us different? I mean, you might be used to, if you've been on Royal Caribbean or Princess, and they usually have, numerous bars and restaurants, maybe some water parks, Broadway shows, casinos. And to be honest, you won't find really much of that on board our ships. We have to keep our ships small because we visit certain destinations in the world that actually have passenger regulations. Antarctica, for example, you can't actually have more than a ship of 500 passengers down in Antarctica and have them actually step foot on land. So we make sure that we keep our ships small, so that we can cater to these destinations and make sure that our guests get the full immersive experience of being able to go on land where we sail. For us, it's about education. So we call it edutainment on board. So where you might be used to cruise directors with the larger cruise lines, we are hosted by an expedition team on board. They're, geologists, marine biologists, polar historians, professional photographers. They each bring something different to the table to help our guests, gain a better understanding and education about the destinations we're visiting, the wildlife, the landscapes, how they're formed. Maybe there's some polar history there to share. So really, we like our ship to become sort of an extension of the destinations that we visit. And we also invest in things like green technology. It's very important for us to operate with the most sustainable, fuel source that we possibly can, getting rid of single-use plastics because, we sail in some of the most environmentally sensitive regions of the world. So it's very important for us that we reduce our carbon footprint as much as humanly possible in this day and age. And the beauty of, having the small ships and the use of our explorer boats, you might know them as Zodiacs, we have the ability to bring you so much closer, to these off the beaten path destinations where the other larger ships aren't able to get to. And as you heard me say, we are over 127 years old, and this really is, attest to putting your faith and trust in a company, especially when you're going to the polar regions, that has this legacy, has this history in the polar regions. It's not like your traditional cruising. There's a lot of extra rules, regulations, weather, sea ice conditions that we need to be aware of, we need to be following in order to safely operate in these parts of the world. We are also the largest expedition cruise company, both in the number of ships. We have 16 in our fleet, and also in the number of itineraries that we have to offer. So yes, of course, we do offer both the Arctic and Antarctica, but we do fill in the gaps in between, and do sail, some expedition cruising along the west coast of South America, through Central America, and even on the US and Canadian east and west coasts as well. And sustainability really is, a future outlook for the cruise industry. There's a lot of improvements that can be done in this area for the cruise industry. I'm thankful that as a company, Hurtigruten has this as really the number one investment moving forward as a company. A couple of the things that we've done, to increase our sustainability and make sure that we're reducing our emissions is we introduced the world's first hybrid electric powered ships. So we have the MS Roald Amundsen and the MS Fridtjof Nansen. Yes, they actually have battery packs on board. It just looks like a giant server room when you have a look at the batteries. And we can actually run silently off battery pack for a period of time. We actually just earlier this week sailing in the Geringer Fjord. We're the only ship there. Currently sailing during COVID. We were the first cruise line to start. And they actually shut the batteries off and we got to glide through the Geringer Fjord just on battery pack alone, which was a pretty incredible experience. And other ways that we are fueling our ships. So with our existing fleet, we're converting them over to a biogas that actually runs off of organic waste and dead fish. I know it sounds crazy, but this is actually reducing our operating emissions by up to 80%. This is a huge feat. And we have the goal as a company to be 100% emission free in our operations. The technology, unfortunately, doesn't exist yet. We're hoping, in the next 5 to 7 years that we will be able to have that mark on our name as being the first cruise line to be 100% emission free. And we were also the first major travel company and first cruise line in the world to completely ban single-use plastics. We did that just over 2 years ago. It actually started as an idea on board by one of our expedition team members. And it really is, something that we're happy to be, at the forefront of introducing these types of initiatives. And it's nice to see that the cruise industry is starting to go that way with banning the single-use plastics on board. And we get to do all of this while we have very comfortable base camp at sea, as we like to call it. We have very warm, cozy, homey feel on board. We are a premium product, but we're not, luxury in the sense of, formal nights with champagne and, fancy dresses and suits. We're very casual on board. Jeans and a sweater for dinner is completely fine, because really it is all about the destination. And then after you've maybe been out seeing some penguins, playing in the snow and ice, it's always nice to come back to your retreat at sea and have some great Norwegian cuisine, all made from scratch, no industrially processed foods. We've got some amazing lectures on board by our expedition team. We have science centers where we can look at ice samples and phytoplankton and really just bring the whole experience home on board our ships. So the idea behind expedition cruising is, yes, of course, keeping your ship small, because a lot of the destinations dictate this. But for us, it's about the spirit of exploration, especially for us, our Norwegian polar heritage. If you look at somebody like Roald Amundsen, for example, he was the first to make it down to the South Pole, the first to have been documented to make it to the North Pole, and the first to find the transit all the way through the Northwest Passage. So darn right, he does deserve a ship to be named after him, but a lot of the itineraries go into highlighting some of those places where, in Joahaven, for example, where Roald Amundsen overwintered between 1903 and 1906 when he was trying to find the passage through, the Northwest Passage, or going to Beechey Island, for example, where unfortunately the failed Franklin expedition, there are actually grave sites located there today. Maybe there's some Shackleton fans out there. We attempt to do landings in Grytviken down in South Georgia, where Ernest Shackleton's grave is located. So we do tie a lot of the, polar history and explorers of the past into the itineraries that we create. It is a lot about, getting off the beaten path, going to these remote destinations. And even when we are in places like Alaska, which, yes, we know there are tons of cruise ships in Alaska, we actually go to a lot of the places where the larger ships can't go. So, you might be used to Ketchikan, Skagway, Juneau on a typical 7-day Alaska itinerary. We don't go to any of those ports. We go to Petersburg, Wrangell. We go around the Aleutian Islands and all the way up north to Nome, Alaska, and things that you can only do on a small ship experience. So we do our best to, kind of hit those small coastal towns, the hidden gems, the very nature-focused experiences in the destinations that we visit. And of course, going into expedition is all about traveling with an open mind and knowing that the schedule does remain flexible so that we can take advantage of the opportunities as they present themselves. And I have a great video to showcase this at the end of this chat, which really just highlights, when the opportunities arise, you got to stop operations and just take advantage of the moment. And some of the gear that we provide you to enjoy an expedition, everybody on our Hurtigruten expeditions will get the Helly Hansen expedition jacket. It's a great wind, water resistant layer, because when you're doing, especially polar expeditions, it's all about layering in your packing. Lots of light layers that you can add on and take off as you warm up, as you cool down during different landings or activities. And don't worry, you don't have to pack your own big, heavy snow boots for the polar regions. We do provide you with the loan of our muck boots for the entire voyage. And these will keep your feet warm and dry. And they're perfect, thick, rubber treaded boots for walking through snow, ice, mud, stepping into polar water. We do also provide trekking poles as well. So again, one less thing you need to worry about packing, and everybody will get the use and souvenir as well of the Hurtigruten reusable water bottle to use during your voyage. And as well, I forgot to mention the jacket is also your souvenir to take home with you at the end of the trip. So it's a nice little souvenir to have. And this picture at the top here, these are our Zodiacs. We call them explorer boats. And these are our version of tender boats, quite different from what you're used to from the larger cruise lines. So these are what we use to bring our guests ashore. If we don't have any dock available to us. And we also get to go out scenic cruising. We've had some great whale, penguin, and seal encounters with our explorer boats. It really does bring you, quite close to nature and really a part of the destination. So the destinations that we have the privilege of being able to operate in, Norway, of course, we are a Norwegian company, and we will be doing some fantastic Norwegian expeditions in the 2021 season. And what's unique about us is we actually sail in Norway all year round. So even if you want to go in the winter time to experience the Northern Lights, go dog sledding, we have voyages all year round to be able to do that. And of course, if you want to enjoy the summer and the scenic fjord cruising, it's a completely different cruise experience no matter what season you go in. In Antarctica, we have 3 ships that we operate down there. You can do anywhere from 12 up to a 23-day experience here. I had the recent opportunity to travel to Antarctica earlier this year, and I never understood it until finally having been there. People always said, Antarctica is a place you'll never be able to describe. And the funny thing is, now having been there, they're absolutely right. In every way possible, I have no way how to perfectly describe this destination because it's just such a magical place. When we are up in the Arctic, we get the opportunity to visit Svalbard, which is actually Arctic Norway. It's a separate archipelago from mainland Norway. So home of the polar bears, if that is something that interests you. We go to places like Greenland with the opportunity to visit a lot of the Inuit communities. We do full circumnavigations of Iceland, so you get to enjoy this beautiful country from all angles. And of course, as you heard me talk about the Northwest Passage, we are one of the few operators that actually goes all the way through the Northwest Passage, ocean to ocean. It is a 26-day itinerary. And then, of course, we do some one-off repositioning cruises through the Americas. So down the east and west coast of Canada and the US, through parts of Central America, and down the west coast of South America before we kick into our Antarctica itineraries. So where to next for us? We are starting to expand our expedition operations. So for 2021, we're looking forward to a hopeful circumnavigation of Baffin Island up in Arctic Canada. And you heard me talk about Alaska. Now, 2020 was going to be our inaugural season. Obviously, we have had to postpone that to the 2021 season. So we look forward to having guests on board our small ship Alaskan Experience next year. We will be expanding into the British and Scottish Isles. And this is actually getting off the beaten path, visiting, the Hebrides and into a lot of the smaller coastal communities, staying away from, sort of your typical larger cruise port cities. We'll have an opportunity to do the same in Scandinavia as well. Again, these smaller coastal cities that probably a lot of us have never even heard of, but that really is what makes an expedition experience, really immersive and getting you to parts of the country that the larger ships just aren't able to go to. And one thing I'm looking forward to, we'll be doing a transatlantic wellness cruise in April of next year. We will have sort of a holistic approach to the transatlantic crossing. We will have fantastic nature chef on board, creating all kinds of great vegan and vegetarian meals, and doing a whole wellness theme just to, I think, help us all sort of reconnect with ourselves, reconnect with nature. And I feel like it's something we could all use, especially come next April timeframe. But just to sort of finish things off, I'm going to share with you that really magical video that I think showcases expedition cruising, in its truest sense of the word. And I hope you enjoy this.
哇，那么大！哇！哈哈！哇！Antarctica, baby. Woo!
I just absolutely love ending with that video because I think it just completely captures the spirit of what expedition cruising is all about. Do you agree, Jenny?
Oh my gosh, it actually made me a little teary.
I'm not gonna lie, the first few times that I saw that video, it did the exact same thing to me. It really is just a beautiful experience.
And that is something that truly is a once in a lifetime experience to see something like that. I mean, just to, if you go to an aquarium and you see them, even that is awe-inspiring.
Yeah.
But the feeling you get when you see them that close to you, and the fact that they are just gentle giants.
Exactly, in their natural habitat. I mean, words, cannot explain that type of experience. And that's a
Yeah,
lot of what,
the one
expedition
photo
cruising
with the
is.
smaller one under the water, and you can see the ice sitting right there. I mean,
Yeah,
that truly is how close you are to them when you're
exactly.
on one of your cruises.
That's exactly right. Exactly right. I kept finding, with my recent trip to Antarctica, every day was like, come on, how could we possibly top this? I mean, just every day just seemed to get better and better. And I think it's because there is so much of the unknown with the experience. It's not like you're in a port every day from this time to this time. You know the night before the following day, where you're going to be doing some of these landings or doing some of your scenic cruising. And that's part of, the spirit of exploration is, just that surprise, that take advantage of the opportunity when it presents itself. That really is the heart of what expedition cruising is all about.
Well, and the fact that because it is a smaller ship, that you can just cut the engines and hang out.
Yeah, exactly.
So
There's not any major time, schedule we need to be following or anything like that. And we're just sort of a small ship community on board, sharing in these equally awe-inspiring moments together. It's unlike any other experience, you can have at sea.
And one of these things, oh, Alexa's talking to me. Let me turn her down. um, one of the things that I've been talking about through all of this is how parents are having to homeschool and are trying to find new and inventive ways to homeschool their kids. Well, right now it's up in the air. You don't know what's going to happen come fall, if kids will be back in school full time or whatever. So this is a perfect way to take your family on a trip and get unbelievable education.
Yeah. Oh, completely. And I mean, on board our expedition ships, we do have science centers. So we have microscope stations set up, and we actually have a science boat where you can go out and collect your phytoplankton samples, do water measurements. We contribute to a lot in terms of research associations around the world, because we're in these parts of the world, where it can be hard to collect data. Because we're there, we can work with our expedition team and actually collect data on behalf of these different research associations around the world. Can I tell you one of my favorite ones? We work with a company called Happy Whale. And so if our guests take a picture of a whale tail, so that's their version of our fingerprints, their identifying marker, we can submit the picture of the whale tail to Happy Whale, and they can actually tell us from that photo, what obviously species the whale is, male or female. It always has a name. Their database, they give a name to each of their whales. What its migratory pattern is, roughly how old it is, and they can actually send you email updates even after you've left our trip. so you can follow along and keep up to date with the whale that you
Oh,
spotted on the
how cool
expedition.
is that?
Yeah, I love it. And even better, if you've sent them a whale tail that they've never seen before, you get to be the one to name that whale. So then anybody who spots your whale in the future, they'll know that it had the name you gave it. So
Oh my gosh.
yeah,
I'm
really,
gonna have to
really
go
cool.
back through some of my whale tail pictures. I have a
Yeah,
great one from when I
exactly.
was in Alaska years ago,
Oh,
but
perfect.
I never knew that existed. That is
Yeah,
really cool.
yeah. And you can still submit them, if you want to. Yeah,
All
it's
right,
fun.
we'll have to check that one out.
Yeah.
Um, did want to touch on what are the ages on your ship? Is there a minimum age for what you allow?
Yeah, the only destination that has a minimum age requirement is Antarctica. You do have to be 5 years or older to
Okay.
be able to go down there. But the rest of our destinations, there's no minimum maximum. Keeping in mind with certain destinations like Antarctica, Eastern Greenland, the Northwest Passage, we do require a medical form to be filled in. Basically stating that you have a certain level of health and fitness to take part in these expeditions, because these destinations are off the beaten path. We're not in cities or towns where there's hospitals and that sort of thing. So that's kind of the one extra requirement for those particular destinations. But we get, young families on board with kids. We get people, in their when I was in Antarctica, I think our oldest passenger was in her mid to late 80s. She was like, I needed to go. I need to do this before, I die. And she just had the most beautiful outlook on, her experience down in Antarctica. So there's not meant to be a specific age group for this, and it will vary by destination as well. But yeah, we welcome all ages on board. Just Antarctica is the only one that has the age restriction for it.
Okay. All right. Let's see what else. The Aurora Borealis. I know that's something that's usually on people's bucket lists.
Yes, definitely.
And honestly, what a phenomenal way to see them, because you truly will be, I'm honestly almost surrounded by them with being in a ship, instead of most people just go up to on land
Yeah,
to
exactly.
experience it. But
And the nice thing is, because we sail the entire season. So, your best sort of opportunities to see them is between that November and March time frame. And even more still, your better opportunity is to see it above the Arctic Circle. Well, we spend more than half the voyage above the Arctic Circle, which greatly increases your chances of seeing the Northern Lights as well. So that's kind of the time frame to sort of aim for. Yes, we do sometimes see them into October, even late September as well. But your best period is that November to March time frame for the Northern Lights.
mhm. Sounds like a good Christmas gift for me.
Yeah, right? I mean, sign me up.
Oh. And the polar bears, the photo you showed with the polar bears. I know
Yeah,
people are thinking, yeah, that doesn't really happen. I know people that have been on these ships and they have those same photos, because
yeah,
you are getting so up close and personal.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. And
Going out on those zodiacs, I mean, they can spot them, and that's where they head. That's part of the beauty of going with a cruise line like yours.
exactly, because we do have expedition team members, up on the decks a lot of the time when we're doing cruising near land, with binoculars, specifically looking out for polar bears, because quite often we catch them, sort of wandering along the shoreline, or they're on the sea ice because they're
Hmm.
trying to hunt for their meals. So that tends to be where we get the chance to see them, is when they are literally walking along the sea ice. And part of the beauty of if it's one of our ships with the battery power, we can turn off the engines. We're silent, is to not try and scare off the wildlife that we are around. We can't, unfortunately, guarantee polar bear sightings, but we do our best efforts. We know sort of their habits of where we've seen them, where other ships have seen them. We are in communication with each other to do our best to try and get our guests to have
Hmm.
the polar bear sighting.
Well, and that's another beauty of the small ship. When I was in Alaska, I did one of the larger cruise lines, and was on an inside passage. Well, some of those places, I mean, you really are pretty close to
Mhm.
the, going through there. But there were people up and, they would radio that they had, look this way for an eagle or that kind of things. And people up on deck would start screaming and run to the other side to get their photo. Well, they hear that and they hear the vibration, not the sound as much,
Yeah.
but they feel that energy and everything, and it scares away a lot of the animals.
Yes,
So
exactly.
that's another beauty of a smaller ship is you don't have that. And I do think too, people are excited, but it's just different because you're there for a different reason.
Completely. And that's the thing. There is a cruise line for everybody, and an experience for everybody. And we do on our voyages, we go through briefings before we do go out and have these experiences day to day. So our expedition team is briefing us on, of course, trying to stay quiet in those types of situations, maintaining a safe distance from wildlife. It's 5 meters, by the way. Just to make sure that we're protecting both them and us, safety first. But of course, we do not want to be there to disturb or disrupt their natural habitat
Hmm.
during these expeditions.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Let's see what else. Oh, the transatlantic cruise. Where does that stop and start?
So we're starting that in Montevideo, in Uruguay. So that's actually at the end of our Antarctic season, and it will cross for 14 days to Palmyra in Cape Verde. So kind of a
Ooh.
nice beach stop if you want to do a little post-cruise stay there. So we will have some of our naturalist team on board from our expedition team, but we will also have yoga and Tai Chi instructors on board. We're going to have health and wellness experts, massage therapists, and more of a clean eating, focus for our menu. Lots of vegetable and fruit smoothies and that sort of thing included in the package. I can send you the information if you think you might have anybody interested in a little bit of self-care and
Mhm.
wellness in
That would
in
be
the
great.
springtime. Yeah,
Yeah, and I think now people are realizing that self-care is important.
yeah,
And,
definitely.
some people think it's a luxury. I personally think it's a necessity. So, yeah, I'm happy to let my clients know about that because what an experience that would be.
And maybe I'll see you on board, Jenny.
Mhm. Yep. Yeah, I got a couple things scheduled in April already, but I'm gonna
Yeah.
check the calendar.
That's nice to hear. I'm, just chomping at the bit to get my next trip
Mhm.
booked. That's for sure.
Yeah. Well,
So,
and looking in the list, both what's scheduled for 2020, and yes, they are already sailing. So we do have 2020 cruising available. And then 2021, I know you go to different places in Alaska, so those are different than where I have been in Alaska so far.
mhm.
But every place else on the list are places I haven't experienced yet, many of which are on my bucket lists as well. So we definitely need to look about putting a group together for some of these because I definitely want to get there. I'm half Norwegian, which is something that's always drawn me to your
Oh,
product.
you're going to be so warm and welcome to have you on board. That's great. That's
So I
amazing.
definitely want to get something scheduled, and what's better than traveling with friends? So if I can take some people with me, it's even better to
Exactly.
experience something like this.
That's perfect. That sounds great. Jenny,
Yeah.
thank you so much for this opportunity. I mean, I think now more than ever, the value of somebody like you, a travel professional, to navigate, I hate to use the pun, to navigate, these uncertain, these choppy waters right now. I mean, my heart and my hat goes off to you because working with our travel agents, they are the ones that you have the insight, you have the knowledge, you have the relationships with us, with airlines, with hoteliers all over the world to help, your clients just try and get through this, rather difficult, unknown, unprecedented situation that we're all in. And it really means the world for us as a supplier, to be able to work with travel partners and your clients and just help each other get through the situation and um, give you the tips and tricks of what we're all doing in terms of safety and cleanliness and everything for the future. So thank you for what you do and for everything travel advisors do, because there is no way I would risk my money in travel without spending it through a travel advisor. It's
Yeah. And we appreciate the support that you give us as well. I mean, that's part of this, is knowing that my clients can, call me direct and not have to wait on hold or call an 800 number. It's the same thing for me. I will only promote products that I have a relationship with the people, with the company that I believe in, because to me, it's not just a sale.
Exactly.
Their hard-earned money is, I almost take it personally, like I'm spending it myself, because I want to make sure they're getting the value out of it. And so that's why I do partner with companies like yours that I know they're going to have an amazing experience and come back and tell their friends and want to return again for another sailing with you.
Yeah, awesome. And that's it. I mean, so much of our industry is the relationships. I mean, we are literally just a virtual phone call away from each other, to help each other out. And that's just part of the fantastic relationships to work
Yeah.
with a
Yeah.
travel advisor, the connections that we get to have with each other. So, so
And I
thank you.
appreciate your
Thank
time
you.
today.
My pleasure, Jenny. And we hope to have you on board very, very soon.
Me too.
Okay. Take
Thank
care
you.
and have a great day. Thanks very much again.
Bye.
Bye.